This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. Professor George here. I've had lots of questions about understanding why the multiplier becomes smaller when there's a change in the price level. So I'm going to do a very short tutorial and help you understand this concept. Okay, here we go. So over here on the left, let me get a pointer. Over here, we have this graph, the aggregate expenditure graph. This is the one we did that's just showing the C plus I plus G and the 45-degree line. And this is where we learned about the magic of the multiplier. So in this graph right here, what we see is that a 200 billion increase in investment, just this problem happens to be investment, but it could be consumption, it could be government spending, any of the components. We have a 200 billion increase right here. Do you see the 200 billion? In investment, which shifts up the whole curve. That 200 billion created an $800 billion increase in GDP. So that's the magic of the multiplier. So if you had a gap, if you were in an inflationary gap and you needed to increase GDP by 800, look how awesome it is. You only have to increase one of the components by 200. That's the magic of the multiplier. So 2 times 4 equals 800. So in this example, the multiplier must have been 4. Now, as we switch from this graph to our aggregate demand graph, this is showing exactly the same thing. But you notice that the price level is 100. We increase aggregate demand by 200 again, and we get this beautiful 800 increase in real GDP. So that's the multiplier. In these two pictures, the multiplier is the same. It's 4 because we've assumed that the price level was being held constant. Now, we know that there's something missing from this picture. We know there's something missing from this picture. What's missing is the supply curve. So this graph I'm going to is this same graph, 6,000, 6,800, but now we're adding the supply curve. So you see what now in a more realistic graph is you've shifted out the demand, you've shifted out that 200. This causes an increase in the price level because we're going to travel up this supply curve. Right, we're going to travel up the supply curve. We know when there's an increase in the price level, it's going to diminish consumption and it's going to diminish exports. So here on the bottom, what we see is instead of going from 6,000 to 800, 6,800, we've gone from 6,000 to 6,400. So instead of having the multiplier be equal to 4, it's equal to 2. So we still have a $200,000 increase in investment, and it produces a $400 billion increase, but it's not as big as the 6,800. So this is a more realistic picture of what happens with the multiplier. We built that other multiplier, which was a simpler multiplier, and held prices constant to see what that multiple effect looks like. So just to recap, this is why the multiplier is smaller in the presence of rising prices. It would be true the other way around. If the government was decreasing spending, the multiplier would be smaller. Make sure you get the big picture that the multiplier means that the initial injection of money into the economy will produce an outcome that's larger than the initial injection. But the simple multiplier that we learned, 1 over 1 minus MPC, is a little bit too simplistic. It's going to be a little bit smaller than that. I hope this helps all those people who have been emailing me about the multiplier.